Wow, great to see so many guys here joining us today. And I actually see some familiar faces also from Mikkeli's campus, so welcome. But hey, how many of you guys want to do something meaningful when you grow up?
Who here is curious about startups? Yeah, I should have guessed that. But then who here thinks that startups are maybe something for later in life?
Okay, perfect. So we got curiosity, we got ambition, and a bit of a skepticism as well. And that's exactly what today's discussion is about.
Welcome to Marcio, the meeting place in the middle of Otaniemi, named in honor of the creative pioneer, designer, architect, Aalto University alum, and most importantly, entrepreneur, Aino Marcio Aalto.
And welcome to the first ever Founders Talks. These talks are about the essence of entrepreneurialism. Our speakers will share their deepest possible thoughts and insights on how to build global companies.
And also a warm welcome to all of you joining us on stream and online today.
I'm Tina Suomi. I'm a business student here in Aalto University, as well as a co-lead of association called Wednesday. And we aim to double the amount of female founders in 10 years. And luckily, we're discussing about that as well today.
And I'm Malhar Bagi. I'm an economics student here at Aalto University, and I'm super curious about scaling startups ethically. Thankfully, we're talking with someone today who's known for her ethical leadership.
And now that we have set the stage, let's talk about why we are here today. So the Founders Talks is about a part of Aalto University's new initiative, Aalto Founders School.
And to give you the best possible introduction, we couldn't have anyone better than the man who was born right here in Otaniemi. He built MySQL into Europe's second ever unicorn. That's $1 billion company right behind Skype. He transformed HackerOne into the world's leading bug bounty platform. But before all of that, his journey started right here in Otaniemi. He was once the chairman of the legendary TF Disco in the 80s. Just goes to show you he could get people onto the dance floor much before he could get them onto open source databases. An award-winning entrepreneur and Aalto University's entrepreneur in residence, please welcome me in joining to stage, Morten Mikkos. Welcome, Morten.
Thank you.
So you've seen founders from all over the world. But why are we, students that are here today, the best people to start startups?
Because you are builders of the future. But to be clear, anybody can build a startup if you have unlimited determination and you think big. And those who reach startup success, they move fast, they learn quick, they never give up. They may pivot, but they never give up. We all have that inside ourselves. Many of us don't know it, or we haven't seen it yet, or it needs to be awoken, but we have it inside us. We are human beings, we have survived evolution so far. It means we are winners, fighters, we can face any adversity and conquer any goal that we set. And that's what the startup world is about. You have big dreams, you are wishing for something better in the world. That is where students are uniquely fitted. You're not rigid, you're not prejudiced, you don't know too much, so you don't know that you can't do it. Like your lack of experience is your startup strength. And this is why so many great startups are created by young students, but not all. Some of the best startups are created by people who have already been in the industry, already done a lot of things. So there is not just one template or one role model, but we want all of you who are students to figure out in yourself this drive to create a better future, the drive to build something new, the drive to make a difference in this world. And when you do this, all your strengths will be tested, so that you might cry at moments. And you will gain new strengths. And when you do that, you get to work with the most awesome people around, meaning other students and startup entrepreneurs. And this is why the startup world is probably the best definition of freedom that you can ever find. Startup entrepreneurs learn from each other, and they learn from experienced and seasoned startup leaders. And that's what we do at the Aalto Founder Talks. We find some of the best, strongest, most amazing, most unexpected, most expected startup founders to come and share their experiences with us. So I'm beyond delighted that as our inaugural guest at the Aalto Founder Talk, we have Monika Liikamaa. Monika has this absolutely unlimited confidence and power. And at the same time, she's very kind and honest and beautifully opinionated on everything. So whenever you listen to Monika, you cannot help but get inspired. You will feel empowered. Thank you.
Let's welcome Monika to the stage. And thank you,
Let's do
Morten.
that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go for it.
Beautifully opinionated. I will use that and tell my husband that he needs to start saying that to me more often.
Should I call him?
You should call him now.
Welcome, Monika.
Thank you.
So, Monika, I understand that you like visiting Aalto quite often. You like being among students, and they like being with you. So, is this your first time being here on this stage?
This is actually, yeah, it was a bit of a shit show to find the right building, because I mean, like, for fuck's sake, put some names on them. But I think in general, yeah, I do like being around young people, because I like the energy and I like the drive and naivety, which often becomes a bit of a problem when you become a founder in a later stage in life, because you've experienced so much, so you tend to be a bit too risk adverse. So yeah, definitely I like it. I'm not 100% sure that the young people like it, but I'm hoping it. I have 4 young people at home, and they sometimes like it and sometimes not.
So that sounds wonderful, but welcome here to
Thank
Marcio.
you.
We are super excited to have you with us today.
Welcome, Monika. And actually, before we start, I want to share with the audience why Enfuse is so amazing. So your company, Enfuse, is actually one of Europe's leading fintech companies and was the first one to put the payment process into a public cloud. And if you have ever used a smart card, digital wallet, or expenses app, chances are that Enfuse has been working quietly in the background to make it all happen. Today, the company processes billions of euros yearly to its customers across Europe. And the woman behind that all is co-founder, co-CEO Monika Liikamaa. And she has over 2 decades of experience in financial services, as well as being a leading voice on Europe's fintech and female entrepreneurship as well. And you have literally built a bold startup to a multi-award winning scale-up, which is quite amazing, and also a mother of 4.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for those kind words. Yeah, because I like to do hard stuff, apparently. And the more I do it, the more I like it. So I do think that all of us are like this combination of sadist and masochist. But now when the kids are also starting to be older, maybe I'm drafting more to the sadist part of it. But like all in all, I like to do things that matter, and I like to solve hard problems.
Yeah, that's quite amazing, honestly. And let's give one more round of applause for Monika.
Thank you. Thank you.
So before we get properly started, I trust that we'll have all your ears in this room listening to what Monika has to say and what she leaves unsaid, because we have a significant chunk of time towards the end of the interview for your questions.
So yeah, let's hop on right into it. I'm 22 now, and when you were 22, you were studying in system engineering level university. And around the same time, you were also working as a taxi driver at a prison card,
Yes.
apparently. How does that, that's not the most common job to have
Like why?
as a
Yeah.
coding students.
Yeah, because I'm born in Sweden to Finnish parents, so I'm from the north, Haparanda, and my father had a taxi company, and then I've been brought up to really, you need to work. Like work is important, making a living is important, but then also being there, I felt that it was very small. So I was at the border to Finland, and then I started, as I graduated from gymnasium or whatever it's the right word in English, lukio, then like what would I do next? And that was in the early 90s, where Finland was still recovering, or like in a depression, and there wasn't a lot of work up in the north at that point. And that's when I applied for this new thing called System Architect. So it was a program by the Oulu University and Luleå Tekniska Universitet, and started looking into development, data science, etc. But as I come from not a lot of money and need to live, of course I did a lot of taxi driving, and then also I had the opportunity to work as a jail guard in the male jail in Haparanda. So been doing a lot of different types of work, which I think it's good now because it teaches you a lot of life skills.
Mm-hmm. So back then when you were 22, if someone had told you that into the future, you're going to be the founder of a fintech startup with 6.1 million euros in revenue in 2024, what would you have said?
I would have asked, like, what the fuck is fintech?
Love the honesty.
Yes.
Love the honesty.
But then to dig deeper, so did you find this entrepreneurial spirit or like this founder spirit after university, before university? When did that happen?
No, I think it's more about just getting shit done. So I always talk about don't do shit, get shit done. So work your ass off and do things and don't be an asshole. So I think that combination led then to me moving to south of Finland back in later 90s. And I remember I was going into the dot-com boom, was about to start. And I had this amazing opportunity. I got a job at Capgemini as a developer. And I started, and I was like, oh my God, like the best place ever. The first job, like real job, because I didn't consider the other ones like in that sense real jobs, because that wasn't what I had studied. And then I started working as a developer, and pretty soon I realized that it was not for me. And then I also realized that my Finnish language skills wasn't very good at that point, and I really wanted to live in Finland, but I needed to work at a place where the Finnish language wasn't that critically important. And as such, I applied for a job as a network planner at Telia, which is a big telco in the Nordics, and I got that job. So I was working as an international network planner, so like data networks, etc., during the dot-com boom and then the crash. And then I was like, okay, I've seen this now. What else could I do? And that's when I became first-time founder. So back in 2006. So I had my first kid 2000, and then the other one in 2002. And then in 2006, I started a company together with an older lady, and we built a consultancy. And I ended up consulting S Group, which is one of the biggest merchant groups in Finland, and they were about to start building a bank. So I became the test and release manager for the bank project, and I did that successfully, got the bank live, and then I ended up actually working at the bank. But so I don't know if like I have had this spirit of wanting to be a founder as much as I remember when I was driving to S-Bank, and I was like, man, I really need to be a CEO one day, because I really can't take this stupid shit that people keep, like in these fucking meetings, like what is wrong with people? And then I realized, and I know exactly where I was in the car. I was in Kaivoksella, and I could see the Toyota, like I just remember that, and I was like, oh fuck, yeah, I need to be CEO. And then I was like, and then I realized, no, but the CEOs get shit from the chairman of the boards. Mm-hmm. Okay, I need to be chairman of the board. So that's kind of how it started.
That's amazing to hear. So then, yeah, exactly. So you went to university, you have this long career. Then when exactly did you get the idea to put payment services onto the public cloud?
Well, I was working at CrossKey Banking Solutions, and we were building card payments, and that's when I started working closely to my co-founder Denise. And then I was apparently bored out of my mind at some point because I kind of hit the ambition ceiling. So I wanted more, but the owners didn't. So I did my executive MBA at Hanken, and every month I was just sitting around, how could we do this payment processing better, faster? And that was the idea. And then I had a meeting with the board of the company I worked for, and they were like, oh, Monica, oh, thank you. Really good ideas. Come back in a year and present more. I was like, okay, I'm done. And I'm not supposed to curse, so I got some big Älä kirjoile stuff there. So I had to then decide that this wasn't for me. So then I quit my job, and that's when I was actually then presented with a question, because I really enjoy and see networking beneficial. So I had been networking, and one guy came to me and said, like, by the way, Mika Antonen, who will be apparently in another founder talk later, so it's good that I start. So apparently Mika is about to build a bank, because people didn't know what bank is, but anyway. And that's, would you like to become the CEO of that bank? And I said, no, I don't. But how is he going to build it? Like, who's going to be the service provider? And then they were like, no, but we're going to do a request for proposal, like take in offers. And I was like, is it okay if I make a proposal? And at that point, I was doing a gig at Aktia. I was running some projects, cleaning up their card side. And I was a bit sick and tired of all the incumbent players who were way too slow, costly, like lacking ambition and drive. And I was like, what if we just did this? Like, we make a proposal to Mika and his team, and we do it better, faster, and globally scalable. And those were the three things. And that's how we started. And then I called Denise and I said, like, should we? And she said, yes, what? But shouldn't we just build a company that does this like processing, issuing processing in a better, faster, and globally scalable? And she was like, yeah, let's do it. So we made a proposal, looked at, okay, how do we scale it globally? And I think scaling it globally, like putting that like really big ambition, made us then decide, like, okay, we can't have data on-prem. Like, we need to go public cloud. And I was like, public cloud, no bank's going to buy from us because they are so, like, scared of everything and so forth. And then I had two former colleagues, tech architect, like really hardcore. And I was talking with them, and they're like, Monica, public cloud. And I was like, okay, shit. And then I called AWS. And then I called Microsoft, because Azure Cloud didn't exist back in 2016 as a concept. Google Cloud didn't exist either. So we went and negotiated with AWS and with Microsoft. And as we were the first one to put issuing processing public cloud, and then we needed to get it approved by the Finnish Financial Supervisory Authority, they were really interested. And we had, like, tech has never been the problem, and tech very seldom is the problem. It's often mindset and lawyers that are the problem. So that's how we became the first, and that's the path we've been building on ever since.
That's amazing to hear.
Yeah, that's super interesting to hear and learn. Actually, I want to talk about Denise a bit. So you met Denise Johansson, the co-founder and co-CEO, right before, like, she was working on a project, if I understood correctly. With you
a long time ago. Yeah, well, when we were building S-Bank, there was this. I was the CIO of the bank, so we had gone live. So I would say like 2009-ish. Yeah. And I got a lot of my people were like, yeah, there's this anal project manager called Denise Kostkinen, like, oh, la, la, la. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And then I met her, and she's younger, not much younger anymore, Denise, because like you are also much above 40, but of course much younger than me, as I'm 50. And I met her, and that drive and that ambition was something that was really interesting and a good combo. So we are very different as like how we view the world from let's say day-to-day stuff, but we are very much the same when it comes to drive and ambition level.
Okay, interesting to hear, because that was my question, like a bit of a dating question. How do you know she was the one to build a company with? But okay, ambitions and...
Yeah, and of course I had seen her perform. So I think one of the good things with me starting Enfuse in a later stage was that the amount of challenges that I was hit with on a day-to-day basis, I always knew who to call. Or let's put it like this. I always had someone to call. And I think one of the key learnings was also that no one ever said no. So people want to help other people succeed. So have the courage to ask for help. And I think it's even more important, like don't ask for advice, ask for help. And people will help you. And the fun fact is this, the only times that the person I called couldn't help me was that they didn't have the knowledge, but they then gave another name so I can call. So I think that's been definitely one of the big learnings, to have the courage to ask for help, because people want to help people.
But how about then, because she's not just a co-founder, she's also the co-CEO.
Yes.
So you share the day-to-day operations together.
Yes.
How did you end up with that structure?
It was very easy in the end of the day, because I'm more tech and product and delivery, and she comes more from a payment side, which means that on a day-to-day basis, she's responsible for our sales, marketing, legal stuff. So in the end of the day, and as we are, like, we're not massively big yet on headcount, around 150 plus, but it's still a growing business, and we have 3 main entities in Enfuse, where we have the Enfuse Financial Services, who does the actual technical processing. And then we have the Enfuse License Services that holds the license from the Finnish FSA supervisory authority, and it's passported throughout Europe, so we can issue cards here. And then we are also licensed under our Enfuse UK, because we are under the UK FCA. So it's been a good structure also, because there's a lot of rules and regulations and compliance and corporate governance items that need to be taken. So being 2, and as I said, you know, and this is like for the ladies, like 1 woman equals 10 guys, so it's like 20 guys running the show.
Exactly, that's amazing. But could you actually take us to a time or situation where, so to say, shit really hit the fan?
Yep.
And how did you guys deal with that situation? Because like having two people leading that.
Yeah, I think first of all, shit hits the fan every day. So I think it's about how it spreads and how we can mitigate. But I think, of course, there are levels of shit hitting the fan. So I think COVID hitting the fan, that was like shit hitting the fan. Because I think, again, as we are from a financial background, like corporate governance, risk management, and all fit and proper, and all of that stuff, you know, day to day for us for a long time. But none of us had put global pandemic as operative risk. So when that happened, and we had just secured our Series A. So our first funding round was, 2 bankers. We did profit already our first 2 years, so we took in debt financing, and then we were like, no, okay. Once we issued for ST1 in the Nordics, a revolving credit card for consumers with Apple Pay as the first in the Nordics, and the only other player was Nordea. That's kind of when people were like, who are these guys? And that's when we started understanding that the inbound started, and we needed equity to scale, like money to scale. And so we had just taken in our Series A, We had Maki as an investor, and then I remember that it was in March 2020. I have this feeling that it was the 8th, so it's the International Women's Day, because I was at Nasdaq at some women event, the bell
Yeah,
and
ringing
stuff.
bell.
Yeah, and Denise was at the Alma Media building because we were granted like top 10 Finnish startups. And then I ran over there, and there was pictures and and flowers and stuff. And then Monday, boom, full lockdown. And then I remember when we looked at then the situation, and we're like, okay, this is the runway, this is the amount of money we have. And we were, of course, burning more than we were making at that point. And we started looking into, okay, who are the last 5, to turn off the lights. And just focusing very anally on execution. And then we grew 36% that year.
That's quite amazing.
Yeah, and I think I always said like resilience and grit matters, and confidence. It's like a muscle that when you train it and you just work hard, it will pay off. And for us, definitely, I remember I said to Denise, if this now goes to shit, we did everything right. And then I can live with that. Because as Morten said, you never give up, you never surrender. But I said, like, if the pandemic goes on forever, whatever that is, or we die, then we did everything right, and I can live with that. But then we prevailed, and we've always been growing. If you look at it, if you look at our trajectory from a distance, it looks like this. And then when you zoom in, it's like this. But like from a bigger picture, it looks really nice, like the compounded annual growth rate.
Yeah. I can imagine that also strengthened your guys' relationship as well, like
Yes,
surviving COVID.
yeah, I think in general, why it's also good, because being a CEO is a very lonely job. And there's a lot of stuff that that people don't know, and there's a lot of scenarios, and then you have the board and all of that stuff. But when there's 2 of you, you can share the wins, which often amplifies it as well, but also the hard times. So I think at best, we probably spoke together 30 times a day. And the fun fact is we don't live in the close proximity. So Denise lives on the beautiful island of Åland. And I live on the mainland, so we don't see. So we often see each other physically if we're traveling and meeting customers or something like that. So I think it's good to have a wing woman, as I said. But nowadays we don't know which one is who. I would want to be Maverick though, but maybe Iceman. Well, anyway, love Top Gun. Yeah.
Okay,
Sequel.
so now I want to go into a very toolbox way of thinking. So it's 2 months into founding Enfuse. You have your people, you have an idea, you're ready to go. What's missing is the money. And you said you went to 2 bankers first. So in a very toolbox-wise way, how did you get the first investors on board?
Well, you need to remember that I'm a strong believer that you make more than you spend. So my first 2 years, I made profit and paid dividends.
Right.
So I made money. I know it's a strange concept for startups, but you can actually do it. What that means is like you really, really, really need to focus on value creation. So as we, again, old bankers, we knew that this is the service that we're going to do. So this is the monthly recurring. We're going to need to run the service, etc. And this is the volume-based components. But of course, we won't work for free. And we were also helping with other small projects. So like hustling, pimping my people to get the money to survive that phase. So we made more money than we spent. And I had some heart attack moments, like especially my tech guys. I told them, okay, we're on a strict budget. You can only spend 25K a month on AWS. And then I got an invoice for 75. I was like, what the actual, like what part of don't spend more than we make, don't you understand? Like I need to beat you guys up, which I did, mentally at least. And then, working that. And then the next round for us was then the debt financing. So as a banker, and I'm not like, again, I'm from the north, so I haven't been brought up in this slush environment and this thing. So for me, VCs didn't exist in 2016. And so we went to the bank. And I think one of the great things in Finland is Nordea Growth. So Vesa and his team. So we took in 3.5 million euro senior loan from Nordea. And then we took 1.5 million junior loan from LähiTapiola insurance company. And I was like, yeah, the trajectory is like legit. And, you know, I was really good at pitching it. And then we got really strict covenants. And I think many people say, like, you shouldn't take debt financing because you get a lot of strict covenants and you need to abide. I just like, fuck the covenants. And so once every 6 months, I went and explained how awesome we still are to people who have no idea, but just hoping, Monica, please pay back the money, which we have.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah, good to hear. And actually, I want to continue with the financing stuff. So especially like, this is what I work also with, and knowing that only less than 2% of European venture capital funding goes to all female-led startups. I can imagine getting funding can be quite of a struggle. Have you experienced that when seeking funding for Enfuse?
No.
Oh, well, that's amazing.
Yeah, no, yeah, yes, and as I believe that it's challenging. I think the reason why it hasn't been challenging for us has been like, as I said, there is no algorithm for experience, and the confidence is like a muscle. So it's not that I haven't known what I'm doing, and I've been very confident. Not like I'm humble, but I'm not apologetic. And investors, when they want to put money in something, they want to understand that it will give back the money that they are expecting. So I think one of the key challenges with especially female founders are that somehow we are a bit apologetic. And would you invest in you if you're like, I'm sorry, I have this awesome idea, it's like amazing, but I'm sorry. So like that's when you have problems getting funding. So leave that aside, believe in what you're doing, and pitch like your life depends on it, and you shall receive funding.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love to hear that. I'm also taking mental notes here about that. But another thing that usually, and actually we discuss with the Wednesday Girlies quite a lot, is kind of like the emotional burden, maybe.
Yep.
And I actually want to quote you because you once said, "I don't stop when I'm tired. I stop when I'm done." Have you ever experienced like some sign of a burnout or felt?
Yes, multiple times.
Okay.
Yes.
Love to hear that.
Yes. I think my worst burnout was when I was 28, and I was a manager at the telco, and I have never burned out for work. It's always been politics. So this was prior to Me Too. And there was a lot of politics, and I was a manager, and everyone like predominantly very tech-heavy industry, telco industry, and everyone was older than me. And we were living the dot-com crash, so there was a lot of co-ops, layoffs, etc. Everyone was panicking and trying to secure their own stuff. So it was like politics on steroids. And that burned me out, like that unsupportiveness, that bitching and whining, that was the thing. And I remember I was sitting in a meeting, and one colleague were trying to explain her problems to me, and then she just suddenly stopped and said, "But you don't care." And then I looked at her, so like, I don't care. And then I realized, like, hi, I can't work at a place where I don't care. That's not right for me, and it's not right for them. So then I quit my job at that point, and that's when I did my first founding. Like, how do I work with stuff that I can live with, how I can be proud of me?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That is definitely something that I personally needed to hear as well. So
yeah, and then I burned out multiple times afterwards. But I think that's also, again, like Morten said, you don't give up. Like, you just move. So I think, again, we put a lot of emphasis on work-life balance. And I always like the NVIDIA guy, Huang, who is like, I work 7 days a week, and when I'm not working, I'm thinking about working. Okay, I think that's a bit extreme, and apparently maybe he doesn't take care of his kids. I have no idea. But I think from my side, it is challenging, but also something that helps you when you are tired is to have the possibility to talk to each other. And I think one of the key challenges is that we think that we are somehow unique in that difficult situation. And when we share it, we realize that it's not true. And if we would talk about it more, people who have lived that phases can give tips and advices. So I think that's really important to let survive, because it's called life. And life is not fair, and there's a lot of, and life is hard, and only through pain and suffering legends are born.
That's very well said. Let's give a round of applause. Such a good answer. So even with the time of struggles, financial burnout, you need to really stay true to yourself and values. And I actually want to share this discussion that we had a couple months back at a Wednesday event, where you shared that you were actually an investor meeting. And the investor was not necessarily the nicest guy, so to say, a bit rude and ignorant, so to say. And you just turned to your colleague, co-founder, Denise, and said, "Ska vi gå äta lunch?" which translates to, "Should we go and eat lunch?"
Yeah, I think the actual was, "Eikö lähtäis vittuun?" But something like that, yes. And then, and that was like if I think about the sad part, and not from my perspective, but like the sad part, like you're two kick-ass women sitting, and then this like half-dead guy comes and starts telling you that no, that's not possible, because that's not something he has ever seen being done, and he knows better. And I remember, and Denise is the one that she really needs food, so she does CrossFit and all of that stuff. So she becomes really hangry, and it was around lunchtime. So I was like, yeah, we don't have to listen to this shit, and so we left. And I think that's also, again, now I'm going to use my husband taught this to me, and he's going to be so proud and happy. Joskus on vaan kallista olla oikeassa. Sometimes, being true to your values and your integrity in short term will cost you, but in the long term, it will pay off. Because in the end of the day, you need to be proud of you, so that whatever is necessary, like for me, there is nothing more important in my life than my family. And that's just a fact. Like I have 4 kids, and I really hope that they become, nice human beings who contribute to the world. And that's the most important thing. And then, of course, in order for me to not lose my sanity and have money to pay for all of their extracurricular activities and stuff, I need to work my ass off.
But that's so nice to hear. But what would you say for a startup founder who might be kind of like depending on the investor? You were in a kind of good situation where you could go like, okay, this is waste of my time, but
yeah, I think that's a challenging one. I think all in all, in the end, it's good for you, like we also did with the owner's will. So we sat down and discussed, what does integrity look like? What are we what are we okay to say yes to, and what are the things that we will not compromise, so that when those opportunities or challenges or issues arise, how would we react? Because if you don't have any kind of scenario thinking, I think you will be too reactive, and I think then you might do stuff you would regret. And I think, again, one of the awesome things with the Finnish startup community is that we are very supportive. So if you are in a position where you feel that you have challenges with some investors or whatever, reach out to any other founder, and they will give their view or experience or something, and I'm sure that you will come out of it with like concrete advices of what to do or what not to do or what to think. So I think in general, let's support each other more, whether it be in life or building companies, but reach out to other founders and in different phases of life, definitely. And then there are the ones who have written really good books. Personally, I really like the book about hard things about the hard things, because I tend to listen to it just because I'm just laughing. I was like, oh yeah, had that. Oh yes, had that. Oh yes, had that same experience. So it's a funny book because it means difference every time I read it. And okay, let's be honest, I don't read books. I listen to books. So when I listen to it, it's funny because as I evolve, as Enfuse evolves, as the problem become different, as the challenge opportunity changes, it's an interesting book to just get some, context and really realize that all of the challenges and opportunities are people-centric, which means that they are pretty similar globally, like wherever, which means that there is no better place in the world to start a company than Finland, because nothing bad can actually happen to you if you go to shit. You will learn, but nothing bad. So this is the best place in the world to start a company.
That's very well said. I'm definitely taking notes. I feel like you should guys do also online.
Yep. I think we have maybe time for one more question before we move to the Q&A section. So, like you've mentioned, Enfuse has this very strong value system and ethical system, and that I believe comes right from the top. So, but do you think has sticking to your values ever come at the cost of financial growth?
Yes, definitely, 100%. Because for us, we want to be the best in what we do in those chosen verticals, and that's why for us, like we talk about ESG, like everyone should give a damn. We don't do porn, we don't do gambling, like we don't do human trafficking, money laundering, terrorist financing. Like we are very clear on what type of card programs we issue, what are the AML, like the monitoring that we do. And if you look at my competitors, not all of them, but there are a lot of money laundering scandals because you've grown so fast enabling these type of programs, which means that your compliance isn't keeping up. And of course, it has come at a cost. Like if you look at my revenue growth and you compare to some of my let's say, challenger processors, we've grown around 40, 60% year on year, and they've grown hundreds, even 1,000%. But many of them are now non-existing because they've been so burdened by scandals. Like I think the one that maybe you guys know about, like Wirecard, like Google it was just a like global reach scam under BaFin, the German financial supervisory authority, and they were valued at more than Deutsche Bank at one point, and they came crashing down hard, but it was just fake.
Interesting to hear.
Yeah. So, but it's a good book about that also, like how they were taken down. So definitely recommend reading on how you not like how you build a scam, but it's a good portion, and a lot of that has come. But no, again, now, as I don't stink, I take a shower, do Rexona, as we say in Finland. But that's of course why I'm now starting to go live with customers like Porsche. In Germany, we're doing SEB in Sweden. You don't do that kind of brands if you do weird, shady stuff.
100%.
Thank you. Okay, so one last question, and this comes from a personal place. So while preparing for this interview, I talked with a lot of international students, and some of who are here today, some of who are joining us online. And one of the main things that came across was that if you're thinking of starting up in Finland, you maybe only have one shot at this, because visa timelines are quite thin. You have 12 to 18 months, most have 6 months, and then the question then becomes, why even Finland? So when you were starting Enfuse, you chose Finland over some of the other, fintech capitals like London or Stockholm. So could you take us through what the trade-offs were, what the trade-offs you were thinking of when you started in Finland?
I think the answer is much more boring. I'm a Finn. Like, I'm born in Sweden, so I did my schools predominantly in Sweden. But then I found the love of my life in ICA Maxi, the supermarket in Haparanda, and been together since 1994. So that was it. Like, where do you find a company? And then, of course, I found the evidence to support like taxation reasons and company and all of that stuff. So it makes sense. Of course, I do have an office. There's Enfuse Sweden. I have an office in Sweden. I have Enfuse UK. I have an office in London. We have an office also in the Netherlands, and we are going now into a hub in Spain and then in Germany as well. So I think probably the answer for me was like, it makes sense because this is who I am. This is the game I know. I understand the supervisory authority, been building banks, so been there for many years. So probably also yes. If I would have started Enfuse in US, I think it would be much bigger, like massively bigger. But I think for me it's again around do the right stuff. And I also, of course, have a family, and it's important for me because if you think about all then the added benefits for Finland, very clean, not a lot of corruption, really good schools and healthcare. And like if I just take UK, London, for example, and then Helsinki area, never would I let my 7-year-old walk to school alone. Here it would be weird if I would be hanging around. They would tell me to like leave. Of course, like they are older now, but I think that matters. Life matters. So that's why I think Finland is a good place. There's a lot of things that we can become much better at, really attracting and keeping international talent. So for us, understanding that we want to scale and the pool of talent is very, let's say, limited because we have a lot of awesome companies, startup that a bit needs the same type of talent. So for us, that's why English, the only language that you need to know at Enfuse, and everything was already back in 2016 built for global, also from a way that we understood that the talent won't be Finnish, and Finnish language as such will not be at all mandatory or necessary. So I don't even, to be honest, know how many actually talk Finnish at Enfuse. Not that many, I would say. So we have around 25 plus nationalities, and yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. That's interesting to hear. But actually, looking at the time now, I think that's all from me and Malhar for you. So we will next up move to the audience questions. So raise your hand up, and we will have someone handing you the mic. And please do speak to the mic so the people online can hear your amazing questions. Okay, the first one.
Is it on?
Yes.
It works? Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, Monika, you talked a lot about your family and your kids, and you mentioned that you want them to grow up nice and contribute to the world. So how have you contributed yourself to ensure that they are contributing to the world?
I motivate them, and if you ask them, I force them to do that.
How do you motivate them?
It's called brainwashing, and you start early. So just as an example, for them, working is mandatory and normal. So we talk a lot about the importance of making a living, and that all work is important. Kaikki työ on arvokasta. So all work is valuable. So all of my children have had the awesome fortune to actually have the possibility to start working as cleaner as construction sites when they are 15. And I think actually my oldest daughter has been part of building this house because she's been working, and then and my husband is in construction, so both my oldest ones are now in the construction industry. So kind of, and I'm pretty sure my youngest son will take that path. I know my youngest daughter doesn't want to, because she's like, oh my God, there has to be a better way and easier to make money. So I said, there are multiple ways, but money you need to make and contribute. So I think it's a systematic way of sharing the values, and then they know inherently what we stand for. So we have this Liikama Team AB, which means that, of course shit happens and we all make mistakes, but it's really important to also there to not give up and work hard and not be an asshole. And you start them small.
Thank you.
But a good question, thank you.
All right, so first of all, thank you so much for that. Very inspiring, and I love the Top Gun reference especially. But I especially found it very interesting when to hear from someone who's been involved in a co-CEO model. And I was wondering how you handle conflicts with that. Because from what I've heard, when it's a traditional CEO-CTO model, the CTO has the final say on the technical decisions, and the CEO on growth after discussion. But how does it work in a co-CEO model?
Well, I'm probably the CTO in that sense, as I do the tech engineering side. I think co-CEOism it's a challenging model, and I don't think, and that's my personal opinion, I don't think you can. If I would be the chairman of the board, which I am, but let's pretend that I would then have, like, I would like, I want to have the co-CEO model, then I would go out there and hire 2 persons and put them as CEOs. I think that could be a disastrous thing. I think for us it's been so normal, because we're like yin and yang, and then the name is called co-CEO. So of course we have conflicts. Of course we don't always see eye to eye, but as we are so complementary, we both understand that the viewpoint I have comes from what I know, and the viewpoint, so depends on items, who we inherently know who is more right than wrong. And I do think that as we are so crystal clear on where we want to take the company, and we've always said that whatever we do, it has to be for the best of Enfuse. And we put in a lot of protective measures also in the shareholders agreement around, like, if either one of us or other shareholders would start doing weird shit, that the company is protected. So you can always take that discussion from those challenges into, okay, but what is best for Enfuse? And then you will find a way. Thank you.
Such a good question. Should we have like one from this side?
Thank you. I have a question related to trust. So when you first started your idea and you were being questioned a lot, did you ever question yourself? And how did you maintain that trust in your own idea? Like, was it hard?
No. But it's a good question. I have never doubted myself. Not like what I think that you mean. Not from this. Would I have done it earlier? Maybe I would have. But like it was so crystal clear, and for us, we do exactly what we set out to do, but we do this just much bigger, much broader, because we want to be number one. So like. I sometimes talk a lot about athletics and sport, and I like really wanted to win the Olympics. So the idea was like we want to be number one in the world, and then you start training and working your ass off, and then you start actually seeing like shit, it's progressing, and then you start next level, and then you go to the next level, and then you go to the next level. So I think I have never not trusted me. I think it's more by like time. At times I've been just tired, but I think that's also when it's good to have the co-founder. That fortunately, because that we have this division, we have not been tired at the same time. Like, you know, like that tired, like I really don't want to do this anymore, tired. So it has come and gone for both, but it has never occurred at the same time. And I think that's a little bit like with marriage. So like I said, I've been married 25 years, together 31 years, my husband. And I don't, like, we love each other, and it's a choice. And of course, as we're finished, we said that to each other 30 years ago, and we don't talk about that now. But the point is, I'll tell you if it changes. But the point is that then we just, you know, move on, and we decided to commit to the journey and to our family. So I think it's been a little bit the same, or a lot the same, with the company eventually. So as the stakes grow higher, when you start employing people, and then COVID hit, and we had people moving from Pakistan to Enfuse, and they couldn't get, like the Forenom that they were supposed to be renting was closed down, and everyone like, okay, but we need to find a way, like, but you can come and live with us, or whatever, like, let's get it done. It's not a problem. Everything is solvable. When there's a will, there's a way.
Very well said. We have time for one more question.
I think.
Thank you so much for a super entertaining and interesting talk. You talked about confidence being a muscle. Can you give us advice on how to build that muscle?
Expose it. It's like going to the gym. Being a founder is not about passion and motivation. Passion and motivation are feelings. Discipline is what matters. So in order to work every day, even though you don't want to, you just go and do it. So it's the discipline to get the job done that is the most important. And I think with confidence, it's also, like, I like sharing. Like, I think I'm very confident in this stage now, because I don't feel any hostility. I'm not stressed at all to be here. And as I'm talking about the stuff I really know well, I don't have to prep a lot. But of course, if I would go into other types of scenarios where, like, I have limited amount of time to really nail, you know, the message, of course it stresses me. But then I do it, because the more I do it, the better I get. And again, coming to sports, I used to do swimming when I was younger, and now my youngest son does a lot of swimming, and it's just kilometers. And that's Tina and I have known each other for some time because of that side. So it's all about the kilometers. So how should I say? Hard work beats talent every day when talent isn't working hard.
That's very well said, and I think that's a perfect way to start wrapping up.
Yes, I think. Well, thank you so much for all your questions, and thank you, Monica, for all those inspiring answers. But we're just getting started with Founders Talks. We're gonna have more of these talks every month, so keep an eye out on this space. We'd also like to thank the organizers for the wonderful job they've done, and for inviting us to moderate here today. We'd like to thank you for your questions, and of course, last but not least, thank Monica for joining us today. Please give a big round of applause. Also, please stay for some drinks and take this opportunity to learn more about Founder School from Casper and Tai over there.
Back there and over there. Yeah.
Yes.
And also, we will have some time for mingling as well. So I saw a lot of hands up, so feel free to come and ask those questions from Monica as well.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for being an awesome audience. And thanks for not having shitty chairs.
Hey, thank you so much.